Hey guys, iRockTHS here with another episode of our Out of the Park 19 tutorial series. Now it's time for the draft episode. This is a really important part for rebuilding teams, the easiest way to get controlled players into your farm system. Each team gets to pick players in reverse order of last year's standings, so the worse your team is, the better your pick is. Teams can also get compensation picks if they extend an offer to a free agent and they sign elsewhere. We'll get into this part more when free agency comes around. This year, the Royals and Rays have 4 first-round picks. Their pick for where they finished in 2017, compensation picks for free agents leaving, and a competitive balance pick. The Rays also have a compensation pick for failing to come to terms with a player from last year's draft. We'll get into this aspect later in the video. The placement of your picks and the number of your picks also affects your draft bonus pool, the amount of money you are allowed to spend on signing bonuses. Because of their 4 picks, the Royals and the Rays have the highest bonus pools this year. You can go above the pool, but there's a heavy tax on the amount above. It starts at 75%, and if you go too far above your pool, you can lose a future draft pick. So make sure not to spend way over your limit. Before we start drafting players, I want to talk about a few more topics that are important to keep in mind. First, the MLB draft is not like the NFL and NBA drafts. Players typically do not have an immediate impact on their major league clubs. Chris Sale and Brandon Finnegan aside. In fact, only 2 players, Mike Leake and Xavier Nady, have completely skipped the minors and gone straight to the majors after being drafted since the year 2000. Players tend to spend a lot of time in the minors. I couldn't find anything telling me how many years, but according to an article by Baseball Prospectus, the average position player sees just under 2,100 plate appearances before making his debut, and the average pitcher throws 391 innings. This is all to say that you're not going to solve your Major League roster problems through the draft, and you should not be bound by your farm system or Major League roster in terms of who you draft. For example, just because the Padres have Manny Machado signed for 10 years, ignoring that opt-out for now, doesn't mean they should shy away from drafting a shortstop or third baseman in the draft this year. Things happen. Players regress, get hurt, get traded, or change positions. As you've seen, I move players around to get them to other positions I would like them to play. Major League organizations also do this. Many good and great second and third basemen are drafted as shortstops, like Manny Machado, Mike Moustakas, or Javier Baez. Byron Buxton was drafted as a shortstop and moved to center field, and Derek Dietrich has played almost every position except shortstop at the Major League level. JT Realmuto was actually drafted as a shortstop, technically. He was a backup catcher in high school, and Marlins scouts saw him catching and they approached him about playing catcher professionally. He said he was open to it, so the Marlins drafted him in the 3rd round. He was listed as a shortstop, but really drafted as a catcher. Hall of Famer George Brett was moved to 3rd after he had problems going to his right in the minors. Another thing is, no matter what, not all prospects make it. I found a Bleacher Report article that shows the percentage of players that make it to the big leagues. 66% of first-rounders make it to the bigs, 49% of second-rounders, 32% of the 3rd to 5th rounders. You get the picture. Also, that's just for making it to the majors. Most of these players that don't make the majors never become full-time players, and even those that become full-time players don't all become stars. I also mentioned talent chance randomness in an earlier video. Basically, TCR is a way to simulate how a player like Mike Appel can go first overall and never make it to the majors, but a player like Mike Piazza can be drafted in the 62nd round and become a Hall of Famer. This entire section has been to point out that you shouldn't stress too much about your picks, especially if you're not picking really early in the 1st round. Don't be paralyzed into not making a decision, it's not that important. And you also shouldn't go into any pick thinking, I need to draft a pitcher. Draft based on what you think is the best talent for your team. There's 2 big factors, in addition to your scouts rating, that you need to consider. Your personal philosophy and your Major League ballparks factors. Your personal philosophy is how you like playing the game. I'm going to use a combination of the GM roster settings, manager strategy settings, and a few other things to try and explain how I prefer to build my teams and how I value players. First, I like speed. I like players who can run. It translates into solid defense and more opportunities to score rather than waiting on a big hit to drive in runs. While I would say I'm definitely on the side of the slider that favors speed over power, I'm probably only 2/3 of the way on that side. I also slightly favor defense, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'd sign Billy Hamilton to a Major League deal. You've got to have some offensive upside. I definitely favor on-base percentage over average as well. Getting on base is very important, and batting average can skew much harder due to bad luck, hitting atom balls or really good defense on the other side. As far as on base versus slugging, I still really prefer on base percentage. I'll take a guy who can get on base 36% of the time versus a guy who slugs 450 every time. I also like to run. I love stealing bases. I'm pretty far up on both the stealing bases and base running aggressiveness bars. Not quite as high on the hit and run side. I don't like to do that too often, mostly because I like players who are fast so the hit and run isn't as necessary. Basically, I prefer a small ball style, and while I do like getting home runs from the middle part of my order, gap power is much more important to me than home run power for those kind of teams. However, that runs counter to the Rangers' park factors. Park factors are how a park plays in comparison to the rest of the league. The best example, or at least the most well-known example, is the Coors effect, where Coors Field in Denver tends to lead to better offensive production. So obviously the Rockies are going to be rewarded by trying to find hitters who have power. There's also different types of park factors. Runs park factor is the best way to measure how friendly a park is to offense. We would use average overall in out of the park for this stat. But there's also park factors for singles, doubles, triples, and home runs. Each park is unique and affects how the game plays there. Since you play 81 games and hopefully a majority of your postseason games in your home park, you want to build a team that suits that. For example, Oracle Park, where the Giants play, has the worst home run park factor at 0.668. It also has the fourth best triple factor, 1.468, due to triples alley in right center and right field. It's actually deeper in left center and right center than straightaway center. And it's deeper than any center field in Major League Baseball now that the Astros got rid of Tal's Hill. By the way, I'm using Fantasy Pros park factors right now because I can't find a way to see all the park factors at once in Out of the Park, and they display theirs in the same format as Out of the Park. But in general, if a park is a hitter's park, all the factors are above 1, and a pitcher's park has all their factors below 1. Then you have weird ones like Kauffman Stadium, where the overall park factor is 1.045, 10th in the majors, but 28th in home run factor, 0.828, because it's so spacious. Looking in Out of the Park, Globe Life Stadium has above average park factors. Overall, the average is 1.204, providing a little more effect to lefties than righties, 1.030 to 1.020. It also has a really high triples efficient at 1.100. Its home run efficient is 1.047, again slightly favoring lefties over righties, 1.060 to 1.040. So clearly this is a park that rewards lefty power hitters. Also, it barely provides a boost to doubles with a coefficient of 1.010, so gap power may not reward as much as you'd think. The walls in right field are shorter than the ones in left field. This explains why the roster for the Rangers looks the way it does, a lot of power-hitting lefties. Willie Calhoun is also a power-hitting lefty. To provide another example, since not everyone is playing as the Rangers, we can take a look at the Royals and Kauffman Stadium because I already mentioned their park's weirdness. The Royals will heavily value gap power. It's actually right on league average for overall factors for righties and slightly above average at 1.010 for lefties. Its doubles factor is 1.030 and triples factor is 1.140. Its home run factor is 0.930. So a player like Whit Merrifield who has good contact and gap power plus well above average speed will play really well there, while someone like Brandon Moss, who's an extreme pull power hitter, won't do nearly as well. We also need to talk about scouting and the OSA rankings. The OSA is an independent scouting group similar to Baseball Prospectus. However, because it has staffing and funding issues, they only update once a year and are not usually all that accurate. It is also less accurate on younger players, like all scouting is. Because of this, you should not trust OSA as the end-all be-all evaluation. Rather, you should consider it as a potential second point of reference. We also need to have a general discussion about scouting and how to evaluate players. Not all average ratings are created equal. If you take two players who have 50 contact and give one 65 power and the other 65 speed and stealing, the player with a 50 power is still getting a lot more out of that 50 contact even though the rating is the same. The reason is it means a lot more for a batter who has power as a primary strength to be average in contact rather than a speedster. A speedster has to have well above average contact and eye in order to reach their true value because they have to get on base as much as possible. And a 50 contact is going to end up with an average between 250 and 280 most of the time. Obviously, this means much more when your hits are going for doubles and home runs. You're looking for a player who is really only a speed threat to be getting on base at least 35% of the time in order for that to have as much value as a power hitter with 50 contact. When scouting, you're looking for groupings of ratings that give you a player archetype, at least for position players. Pitchers, you can kind of tell the archetype they are from the movement and stuff ratings. So, for example, if you wanted a decent utility guy, you're looking for a player who has good defensive ratings and decent position ratings at multiple positions. If you look at a pitcher, you usually need 3 average or better pitches for a player to pan out as a starter, but only 2 can work for a reliever, especially with high stuff. If you're looking at sluggers, you want to find guys who have decent contact, at least 40, or they will probably fail to make contact enough to actually hit decent numbers of home runs. You also want them to have good eye/discipline or avoid Ks, or they'll probably strike out way more than you'll be comfortable with. It's probably also worth noting at this point that I overvalue a good avoid Ks rating, because a strikeout is about the worst outcome for an at-bat. Now, I've mentioned this before, but you should also be on the lookout for players with high work ethic and intelligence. Not only are these players more likely to develop and have positive impacts on the clubhouse, they are less likely to get drug suspensions. A player that has 60 overall potential with good work ethic and intelligence is probably a better pick than a player with 65 potential and poor work ethic and intelligence. Leadership has an impact on that as well, as it's very hard to find players with the leader or captain traits. There's a reason the Padres paid so much for Hosmer last year. The leadership traits he has are rare and worth much more than just his on-field performance. It can help keep a locker room fun and positive environment even when the team is losing and performing poorly. It helps with player development, especially at the major league level. Another thing to keep in mind is that for position players, eye discipline and avoid Ks are the last to develop, and for pitchers, stuff is the last thing to develop. If a pitcher suddenly adds 2 to 3 miles per hour to their fastball, their league average stuff can all of a sudden pop up to a 60, and what looked like an okay back of the rotation guy can suddenly be a mid to front rotation starter. Also, relievers get a slight boost of stuff since they can go all out over a shorter period of time. So with scouting on younger players being less reliable than older players, you can look for players with slightly below average eye/avoid Ks or stuff, but really good contact, power, speed, movement, and control, then hope they outperform the early report on those late developing tools. This is especially useful later in the draft when you might be taking a lottery pick on a player with one tool, like a guy with 80 power and nothing else. The last thing we need to talk about is how the draft works and how you can take advantage of the little mechanics involved. First, I've touched on the bonus pool, but I want to get into a little more detail on that. Each player has a demand amount, or they will sign for slot or be rated as impossible. If a player will sign for slot, it means that their demand will be roughly whatever the bonus allotted for where they should be drafted. Impossible players will in general need a bonus so large that you can't reasonably afford to sign them, or it may be above your bonus pool amount. But what happens if you draft a player and can't afford them? Well, if you can't sign a player that you drafted in the first, second, or third round, not compensation picks, then you will get a compensation pick in the draft the next season. So if you want to try to sign a player that has an extremely high draft demand, the best time to draft them is probably the third round, the last one you can get compensation for in the next season. Another thing to mention is hidden gems. Unlike in Madden, where you can scout a player and discover their true talent is higher than initially thought, in Out of the Park, this is where you can find a talented pitcher disguised as a position player, or vice versa. With the addition of two-way players in Out of the Park 19, this is less likely to happen as the game is finally programmed to recognize talents on both sides of the ball. However, in Out of the Park 18, Joe Adell was listed as a pitcher. Sure, I usually had to give him $7 million or more to sign him, but if you look at his ceiling, he was more than worth that. He may turn out to be the best pick in the 2017 draft. So, before we go into the draft, I want to do a quick recap of everything we need to remember. First, we want to draft the best player available and not draft on need. Second, intelligence and work ethic are important for players, and leadership is also great. Third, draft players that project into your own personal ethos but also fit your park profile. Fourth, your scout is more reliable than the OSA rankings, but the OSA rankings can be a good comparison to your scout. Fifth, avoid Ks and stuff are the last thing to develop. Sixth, try to draft players that you know you'll be able to sign, but in the third round you might want to try to draft a player that's got a really high demand. I think we've gotten everything we need to discuss out of the way, so let's get the draft going. Okay, so now it is time to get into the actual draft here. So we are going to go ahead, you go to continue draft to just start looking at everyone. It looks like it sorted through to where I stopped looking at players. So I did do want to go over to my shortlist. Not all of the players that I shortlisted were players that I wanted to draft. I gotta move a cable here really quickly. It's in the way of my screen. So let's start down here because I think they should all be at the bottom. Okay, so this is actually a player I was thinking about drafting. What order are these? Let's sort them by potential rating, because that should sort them by the order that I put them on here. So, okay, so this is what I wanted to point out. Personality here. So he has high intelligence, but members of the media consider him a good quote. Indicates to me that he may actually have a bit of a disruptive personality. So I would want to maybe think about it before drafting him. That's just kind of what that means to me. I came across a couple of those that indicate some personality things to me. Right here is an example. I think I have grabbed a couple of these as an example. So this is a player I would actually draft. His position says relief pitcher up here, but you can actually work on stamina. You can actually raise stamina by forcing a guy to be used as a starting pitcher. Changing his position to starter. Stamina is largely based on how many innings you throw from year to year. So if you stretch out his stamina a little bit, give him a few more innings to throw, he'll probably stretch out his stamina and could be a potential starter. He's got the stuff, he's got the movement, he's got the control. He's got 3+ pitches, plus pitches. So I'm definitely considering drafting him even with that low personality, that low leader. And this personality also, mind tends to wander, tends to suggest to me he might have intelligence on the lower side. But I would be okay with drafting him later in the draft. I'm mostly thinking about drafting someone like him in probably the 3rd or 4th round. Because, again, he's a project. Let's see, Nick Sandlin. So, yeah, this is another player. This is, to me, a prototypical ground ball pitcher, side armor, softer stuff, really good stuff, movement control, sinker, slider, has potential for an average changeup. Stamina needs some work. He would be more of a project than, what's his name? Ferreira. I'm not going to be able to pronounce that because he has a fringe pitch for his changeup. His third pitch is a fringe pitch, whereas Ferreira has plus pitches, plus potential at all of them. So he would have to get that changeup to where it's projected or have that go up a little bit. So, and he'll probably add a mile or two an hour onto this. So he'll probably be thrown in the 90s pretty consistently. So this right here, I should mention, I don't like drafting pitchers in the first round. Not pitchers, relief pitchers in the first round. This would get me tempted if I had a pick at the back end of the first round. I'm not picking him early in the first round. Like, I've got the 15th pick, so I'm not going to be picking him this time. If I had a pick in the late 20s, maybe if I had a compensation pick, I would consider picking him, because that stuff is electric, and if he can get that stuff down, his control can outperform a little bit, and his movement develops, yeah, he's got the stuff. He's probably compensation pick or second round talent. Let's see. So this is what I mentioned earlier. This is a guy that you're going to have to dream a little bit on. He's got a high leader, but that changeup is only a 45 potential. So if that changeup never really develops, he's not going to be a strong starter. So he's probably going to be a swingman or a bullpen guy if that stuff doesn't develop. On top of that, doesn't really have great stuff. You're looking at, if you're going to put a guy in the bullpen, you're looking for him to have 55 stuff. He does have the control to pull it off, but that's just a risky pick for me. Justin Fields, this might be getting into where I was actually just adding players to this list to actually sign them. So a lot of these guys I shortlisted guys who I didn't think would actually, or I thought might actually be on the board. I tried not to shortlist guys who were in the top of the top. If you go into the actual draft and not there. Let's see, it's draft pool. So I sort by potential overall, and you see I didn't put these guys in there. I think Xavier Edwards is probably my favorite player in this draft. 75 speed, 75 steal, 70 contact, 70 I, 65 avoid Ks. I don't care that the power is low, and the gap power is really oddly low. I think that might be a miscout, but who knows? And he's got high work ethic. He's got the range and the ability in the infield to stick at shortstop. This is probably the best player in the draft by far. I didn't see any pitchers that exceeded him. The only other players I would consider are actually the next two players. Nolan Gorman probably doesn't have the range to stick at shortstop. I'd probably stick him at third base and see where that goes. He's got the high intelligence, so he's probably going to pan out. And he's just a solid hitter across the board. The only below average part of that's avoid Ks. And he is a slugger, so that usually does tend to come with that territory. He's average speed as well. That's not really going to contribute to much, but it does make nice for someone like me who doesn't like to clog up the base paths with a slugger in the 30 speed range. So if it were up to me with this draft, with him being a lefty, if I had the first overall pick, I would be taking him over Xavier Edwards. But I think the Tigers have the first pick, they probably would be better off with Xavier Edwards. Nolan Naylor is just a really good pick because I think you underestimate how bad catching is, or it's possible to underestimate how bad catching is in this draft. He's a 5-tool catcher. He's a 5-tool player at the catcher position. 5 tools: hit, power, speed, fielding, arm. 5-tool potential at the catcher position. Now, you do see he has infield position. He does have infield potential. He's got pretty good infield ratings. I'd probably move him out of the catcher role before he made the majors, to be honest. I might start him there, but I didn't want to completely back out. But I don't think he projects to be a great catcher per se, because of that ability. So I may move him out to something like third base, second base, and let him play out there rather than try to sit him behind the plate. But if you are going, he's got the offense that if he's an average catcher behind the plate, that he's probably an MVP if he reaches this potential. Does what he needs to in order to be in shape. I kind of read this one two ways. I think there's two ways to read it. You can either read it as he does what he needs to, which means he doesn't put in the extra effort, which would suggest a high work ethic, or he puts in all the effort he needs to, and he's going to put in the effort he needs to as he goes forward. I don't know which one of those is actually more correct, and which one of those actually, what that actually signifies. So that's two ways of reading it. Read that as you will. I wouldn't be afraid to draft him first overall. But now that I think we've got all that out of the way, Brady Singer. Oh no, Brady Singer. I thought Brady Singer had a low intelligence or something like that. So he just has low leader. So that's not really a red flag to me. So let's get into the first year player draft. So let us continue draft. Auto pick until next pick by Texas. Okay, so let's see. So Casey Mize went first overall. That is realistic. Carter Stewart, or that's actually what happened. Carter Stewart. Nolan Gorman actually ended up going third. Noah Naylor fourth. Jonathan India fifth. Ethan Hankins sixth. Nick Madrigal seventh. Brady Singer eighth. Shane McClanahan 9th. Seth Beer 10th. Xavier Edwards 11th. Matthew Liberatore 12th, Ryan Rollison 13th, and Logan Gilbert 14th. Which means... Oh, I thought he was still on the table. I must be missing something. I thought he was still on the table. Oh no, there he went. I was just saying, I thought Xavier Edwards was still on the table for a second. I was gonna be like, well, despite what I just said about me not picking him, I was gonna pick him if he was still on the table. He's really talented, even if he doesn't directly fit in with our archetype. So didn't necessarily expect all these guys to be still on the table. So I'm looking at. I'm just gonna go down in order for a while until I finally settle on someone. So, personality here, much of his career arc, much of what happens in his career arc will be up to him. Again, there's two ways to read that. I read that as he has the lower work ethic that he needs to put in the effort to actually make it. And it's also possible to read that as he has the ability to affect his career and he just has to put in the effort to get there, and a positive thing. He has the talent, he just has to put in the work, and I read that as a negative. I'm not saying I won't draft him right now. He's just not impressing me. He has time at second and short. He'd probably stick at short, might move over to second with that arm, but he should be good enough to stick at shortstop. Saul Gonzalez, this is a pitcher. Yes, he's listed at shortstop, or at relief pitcher. I thought he'd be a college pitcher. But he, has the stamina to be a starter. Really great stuff. Amazing fastball, really good slider, below average changeup. I'm not taking him first overall. Or I'm not taking him with my first pick. Riley McCauley, 80 stuff, 65 curveball, or 65 fastball, 80 curveball, 45 movement. He's got everything here. I'd like to see a little bit more gas on that. And that would probably help his fastball rating too, in order to really make him a truly effective pitcher. But again, he's a true two-pitch pitcher. As good as he is, I'm not taking him with my first pick. Nick Schnell, this is the first player I think that I added to my list. I think there were a couple more that I added to my list that might have been taken. So he's got good offensive tools here, slightly above average speed. He's got arm. He's already in right field, which is probably where he profiles out. He's a lefty, so he hits well within our archetype. He's a high schooler, so he's younger. His bonus demand is 1,400, and he's extremely hard signability. Let's see what it says. So the recommended slot is 1,590, but he's extremely hard signability, which means he'll probably want closer to 2,000 or 2 million actually to sign, which is gonna slow me down here. It's not gonna make me completely say no. I wish there was a way to remove him from the demand from that area. So Addison Barger, shortstop, lefty, above average contact, decent home run power, good eye and avoid Ks, decent average speed, good base running, good infield talent, or good infield stats. Does he have any outfield stats? He does have outfield stats. He could play corners. Nope, I wasn't done. I need to look at his personality. Okay. Does probably has okay work ethic and intelligence, not negative. So that's really the important part. Low grade, which means he won't cost as much, and he won't be nearly as demanding for compensation going forward. But I'm not necessarily gonna draft him right now. He's not making me want to choose him above everything else. Brennan Davis, good offense here. A little low on the avoid Ks, but he has a slugger, so that's okay. Average speed, not really going to do too much for you on the base paths, but he's not going to kill you. Does look like he is going to be a corner outfield kind of guy with that right field talent in the arm category. Left field could play out. He's got the range for it, but you usually see that arm in right field. Righty, so not quite as attractive. High schooler. He doesn't really show greed. It says he demands slot, but it says extremely hard signability, so I'm probably going to have to go a bit above whatever his demand is. Unfortunately, it probably actually isn't whatever my slot is. It's probably actually below that, but I can't know for right now. So, I'm not going to draft him right now. Durbin Feltman, holy cow, that fastball at 95 plus fastball curveball. Average pitching tools. My goodness, that is very attractive. And if he is still on the board in the third round, I will definitely be taking him. Osiris Johnson, good contact, average, slightly above average power, average over there. Good speed, good steal ability. Has the ability to play shortstop. Also has some time in center field, so could be a good utility player as a floor. High leader in loyalty, his greed's high too, which is great. But first to come in a team for a good play speaks a lot to his leader. Doesn't really say anything about his intelligence or his work ethic, I don't think. So he's looking really good. Shortstop, righty with a pull hitter, but ground ball hitter is just not going to hit as many home runs. Still not decided on anyone. Charles Mack here. Plays up the middle. Does he have any outfield ratings? Has okay outfield ratings, would mostly profile as a left fielder if I moved him out there. Also a decent catcher. Has no time there, but could potentially be switched over to catcher if I was really trying something. Don't see any reason to do that here. High work ethic, so he's much more likely to reach all of this. That's not bad. Lefty, decent power, good eye. Could be a pretty good player for this team. Jason Rackers, so this is the guy I talked about earlier. I don't think I need him on the short list anymore. Short list, remove. Joey Bart, he actually went second overall in real life, and you can kind of see why. Catcher, good behind the plate, above average contact, average gap power, home run power, and eye discipline. Below average speed, but he's a catcher. Above average catcher, and high leader, high work ethic, high intelligence. I am going to add him to this list. I'm not going to draft him yet, but I'm seriously thinking about it. Will Bednar, rigid in his routines means he might not be great in the clubhouse, but probably won't be too abrasive, I don't think. Slightly above average stuff, good movement, good control, fastball, curveball, changeup that are really good. I don't think he's enough to jump ahead of Joey Bart right now, but that's a really good pick that I may regret because he wants a lot of money. So if I take Bart, he's got a hard signability and he demands above my slot. So I'm going to have to draft below slot or risk not signing a player later on. If I'm drafting him, I'm not drafting a player in the third round that I'm going to try to sign. He's not going to be around in the third round to try that with. So, Tristan Casas, I don't like drafting first baseman in the first round, and he's got low work ethic. So, as you can see, payoff comes when he pays attention. He's probably never going to hit this potential. So, he'll probably be a decent bat somewhere someday. On top of that, he is a lefty. Okay, I was just saying I'm not going to draft a first baseman in the first round who's a righty. I will if he's a lefty. I'll think about it. Cole Cottom, high leader, high work ethic, average behind the plate. Could move out to maybe shortstop not shortstop, second or third base. Could move to right field. Doesn't have the defense really to play out, and he's got okay offensive tools. I don't think this is a first-round talent. I don't think he has a true position, and he doesn't have the offensive talent to justify a first-round pick, especially this early. So the first thing I did check was that injury. If that was going to be Tommy John's, I was gonna nope right out of that. It's not here, so unfortunately it won't show you. So 4 above-average pitches, high loyalty, high work ethic, low leader. And he's got high ratings as a catcher. His offensive ratings aren't very good, so I'm not going to consider him as a two-way player. I'm only going to develop him as a pitcher. If he was good offensively, I might consider that. But he's only good as a pitcher, really. He has an okay offensive sides, but not enough to draft him. That is really making me think about it. He looks really interesting as a starting pitcher, even with his injury. Cordell Dunn, okay tools here. That wouldn't be a bad pick if Joey Bart wasn't on the board. There's no reason to draft him over Joey Bart. Other than that, this would be a pretty solid late first round pick. Average tools across the board, average speed. Slightly above average catcher, no negatives in the personality. I would be okay with drafting him in the first round if I was drafting a little bit later. He has an impossible signability, so maybe, we're not going to visit that if we draft Joey Bart. So Justin Fields. So this is kind of a guy who wouldn't really excel too much because we don't allow for the doubles. He's got the contact power and home run power. He's got the speed that if he can get the gap power going, he could actually get some really good triples in the park. He's got the range and the arm to make it at shortstop, too. He's also got the time at third base. He's got the arm for third base, definitely. Normal signability. So we may come back to him in the second round if he's still available. Probably won't be. High leader. That's pretty good. So, I think my mind's already made up, unfortunately, as much as I told you guys, my mind's not made up. My mind's pretty much made up. Holy cow. Okay, so stuff looks good. 3 average pitches, looks like a borderline candidate. Low movement is tolerable with the control and the stuff. And then you look over here. He's got high greed, low work ethic, low intelligence. That is just perfectly perfect for a player who is just absolutely terrible on the clubhouse. One more, I guess. So shortstop, average contact, slightly below average gap, below average home run, good eye, decent avoid Ks, above average runner, above average infield tools, high loyalty, high greed though, but high work ethic. This is what you're looking for in a shortstop, honestly. This is a good compensation second round pick. If he's still on the board, we'll see. Is this going to be a bit of a risk because Joey Bart is demanding a lot? But we are going to go ahead and draft him. And you get a nice little achievement for that. So we're going to go ahead and auto pick until our next pick. And it's a bunch of relief pitchers. So, relief pitchers, again, I'm not picking them. The game's not picking them because they just don't have the value to match their overall. I'm looking at any of these. That's not a relief pitcher. Looking at any of these 3 to see if they're really worth drafting. If he didn't have 3 below average here, movement, control, and changeup, I would say that's worth it in the second round, but not with all that. Damn it, they took everyone I really liked, I think. Damn. So let's go back to Brennan Davis. High intelligence, corner outfielder through and through. Good contact, gap power, and home run. He's extremely hard to sign, and so I'm not going to draft him for that reason. If he wasn't extremely hard to sign, I'd consider it, but I've already drafted my hard-to-sign player. Same thing here with Riley Gillum. Would be a decent second-round pick if it wasn't for that stuff and the extremely hard-to-sign. If he's still on the board in the third round, that's a hard question. Keegan James. That is a very interesting pick there. I'm going to go ahead and throw him down here just so I don't accidentally pick someone that I can't sign. But I'm not really going to pick him yet. Reliever, nope, I have a better pitcher on the board. Ron Smith, even though we just drafted a catcher, I know I said don't draft based on need, but I've already drafted a catcher. I don't want to necessarily draft another catcher. He's got a hard sign ability. He's got a slot demand, so that's not working against him either. There's just nothing shouting at me that I need to draft him. Can he pitch? No, he can't pitch. Okay. I didn't check for that. I should check for that. Let's see. Show all. I should show you guys how to check for this. So I switched to all batters and view pitching potential and sort by potential stuff. Or potential rating. No, I want potential stuff. There we go. So I clicked the wrong potential there. So here you have the position players who look better than they are, or look worse than they are, because they're listed as position players. So he's got a 35 overall, but that looks like a pretty decent pitcher if he has multiple pitches. He has 2. Whoa. Woo. I am adding him to the short list because I want to come back and draft him later. I'm not drafting him right now because I'm still not ready to draft a true reliever, but that says a lot. So he looks like a decent player, below average offense, decent on the base paths, decent up the middle. And then you come over here and look at his pitching. He's got average stuff, average control, so average movement, fastball, curveball, changeup. I don't think he's any better than Keegan James. So, and then we'll look at one more Ryder Green, because I said stuff is the last thing to develop. So he looks like an okay offensive player. He's got a slightly above average speed stealing. He's got 45 contact to go with 60 power. He's got decent outfield position. He's easily looks like a right fielder to me. He looks like a prototypical right fielder. His pitching, 45, 55, 55, and fastball, 55, 50, 55. Honestly, he wouldn't be a bad pick, but I wouldn't switch him to pitcher because all of this up here says to me he should be a right fielder. So now let's go to all pitchers and sort by batting potential, and let's sort by contact potential. Now this isn't great because this isn't as good because you have pitchers who are you have batters who are bad at contact but good at power. So you have to sort by multiple. So right here, Simeon Woods Richard. Hello. So he's a decent pitcher. He's played first base. What are his defensive ratings? So he's not really going to play the outfield too well. 70 power, 55 contact is making me think about it a lot. Yeah, that sounds really nice. I didn't take a look. Oh, that's very tempting. I'm very tempted by that. I'm also very tempted by his pitching. He has more upside as a batter, but more surety as a pitcher, I think. Ugh. If we do this, though, we're going to have to hope his demand is below that if we draft him. So here's a guy, like I said, different players have different abilities. This guy's a speed guy. So, see, he's a pitcher. Not a great pitcher, but not a bad pitcher. He's got outfield experience. Does he have any infield? He's not going to make a great infielder. Can't turn double plays for worth a damn. Speed guy. Gets on base pretty well. Would not be a bad pick if you needed an outfielder. I don't know if he would be better as an outfielder or a pitcher. Then, of course, you sort by this, and you look at, here we go. Will Shira. There we go. So, borderline pitching prospect. See 25 potential, but look at it. He doesn't have above average stuff, doesn't have above average movement, has good control. 2 pitches might be above average. 2 pitches probably won't pan out. There's just not a great chance that he turns into a good starter or a good pitcher. And then you look at his offense. He has about 55 speed. He's got 60 power, 60 I, 40 avoid Ks is not nothing for a slugger like that. He's a switch hitter. He's an outfielder. He's got enough outfield. He can play right field or left field, really. But he's an extremely hard sign. And that's going to scare us away. So, yeah, you can't sort by fielding at primary position because look at how many 80s there are. So, that's how you search for those diamonds in the rough. Just wanted to go over that really quickly. This video is going to take a lot longer than I wanted it to. We're going to go ahead and draft this guy because he's too tempting. And that's probably a bad decision that goes against everything I kind of mentioned. We're going to show all players again and default. Sort by potential just so we see the best players at the top. Even though that goes against everything I told you guys, I'm going to do it because I'm dumb, I guess. I don't know. No, where was he? Extremely hard. Damn it. I was really hoping he was a normal sign. Hard sign. Dang it. I'm looking for the easy signs. Come on. Is there a thing to sort by? Personality and morale doesn't. You can't sort by, like, intelligence, work ethic. So here you have a guy who's high intelligence, high work ethic, high leader ability. Not a great player. He'd be an okay player. It'd be worth going back and taking him. I'm not going to play late enough probably to take him. Yeah, I was just trying to see if there is a way to see, like, yeah, and as you can see, it shows no stats, so can't look at that. I was trying to see if there was a way to see, like, signability, because it shows demand, but that doesn't really indicate how signable a player is. So, you can see 3 hard signability, but I don't want a hard signability player. I want a not hard signability player. I want a normal or less. And it's got to the point now with taking those 2 players who are that hard for me to sign, where I am actually going to consider how easy it is to sign a player, because I don't want to lose a pick like that. Which one was this guy, I think. So he was a decent talent. Hard sign. Darn it. He looked decent too. Let's see. Brand Blaylock. Extremely hard. Brett Bond. Hard signability, but might be a decent pick. Normal signability, fastball, changeup, curveball, all above average, control slightly low. Probably better. Oh wait, that was this guy, wasn't it? Oh, is that this guy? No, that was this guy. What's this guy? And that's a worse pick. Just a straight up worse pick. Extremely hard, and he's not screaming out to me that I need to take him. So extremely hard. Nah. Brian Eichhorn, extremely hard, not that great. As you can see, this takes a while. We're over 33 minutes in the draft right now. Well, not in the draft, but in this take. We spent a decent amount of time just looking at players. If he wasn't extremely hard, I'd take him right now. But he's extremely hard. Blair Henley, easy. But he's a borderline pitcher. Sinker, curveball, slider, changeup combo. I don't see myself taking him right away. Extremely hard. Does fit into our park, though. Low intelligence. Never mind, I'm not going to take a low intelligence guy who's extremely hard. Extremely hard. We already discussed my opinions on him. Extremely hard, but looks really attractive as a pick. Extremely hard. Looks like a pretty decent pick, too. Let's see. I think Matt Mercer's the last player I looked at. That would be a pretty decent pick. Want slot, hard to sign. Down there, see what else we come across. Very easy to sign, but I don't see anything there that's really screaming to me other than him being a catcher. So we may come back to him. Impossible to sign, so I'm not even going to consider it. Normal. I'd like to see a little bit more movement out of that pick, but we may come back to that. Extremely hard, but looks really tantalizing. I'm probably just going to find a player and then cut to that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take Logan Browning here. High leader, high work ethic, even though he's got high greed, very easy to sign, 3+ pitches, should have a pretty decent career. Could see the stuff go up. I could deal with the control issues on a guy who has better stuff, average movement, 3 solid pitches, and is a lefty. We're going to go ahead and draft Logan Browning. So we are going to go ahead and draft him here. Draft player. Okay. So now what we want to do is I don't want to keep drafting players, but I don't want to stop drafting players. I don't want to keep you guys watching me draft players because that's going to take a while until we get to the point where you draft people based on tools. So what I want to show you is what you might want to start doing later in the draft. So we're going to go to all batters. We're going to go to batting potential. So we're going to look at power. So if you look at a player, okay, Jordan Adams isn't a good example. We may actually, extremely hard. We're going to take Jordan Adams. Okay. That's like the best player available. Easily. Even though he's extremely hard to sign. We're going to draft him right now because we don't know what his demand actually is. It's probably too high, but go ahead and draft him. So if you look at someone like Chandler Taylor, who isn't truly a one-tool player, let's set up a filter really quickly. So let's see. No, where is it? Oh, it's listed as pot. So power potential is at least 60 and contact pot is below 40 and where's speed? Speed is below 40. So you're looking at true one tool power. There's no one left. Okay. Let's get rid of contact. See if we get anyone left. So yeah, so you see like Alec Boehm is probably the best example. So he's got 40 power or 40 contact, which is above what I would consider, but 35 speed. Can't really defend very well. You might draft this guy later, but you're not going to draft him early. You're going to draft him as a lottery pick kind of player, where you look at him and you say, he's got like one tool that if it develops and all this other stuff kind of develops and beats his projection, like if he beats his projection on his contact rating, like let's say it was 30, and he beats his projection on contact rating, well, then you could turn him into a pretty decent third baseman or first baseman. Probably first baseman, let's be honest. Might have better luck with speed is at least 60. And power potential is below 35. That might get us, yeah, that's getting us more players. So, but I don't even want contact rating. Yeah, something like Kendall King, who just has nothing outside of his speed. Like can't make contact, can't hit for power, can get on base a little bit much for my liking. And he's got high intelligence, so he might beat those. Whatever, I'm not gonna draft him. That's the kind of stuff you're looking for. Like he's got a little too much contact to really be there. Let's look by speed potential. These guys probably have something. So 30 contact, 25 potential power, 30 avoid Ks, like 70 speed. Like this guy is not going to make the majors. But you might draft him in the 15th round, 20th round, and say, well, if he beats his projections a little bit, he's Terrence Gore, but not quite as fast. Terrence Gore would probably have 80 speed. This is pretty much where we're going to end the episode right now. I'm way longer than I wanted to be. I wanted to be about 45 minutes, and we're probably going to end up closer to an hour. This is a little bit longer than I wanted, but I think there's a lot of good information. I did not realize I was going to be paralyzed so much on my second pick. So I knew these always take me a while, but I didn't realize how long it would take me. Anyway, that's going to do it for me this time. Hopefully the next episode does not take as long, because I don't need to spend as much time writing an intro next time. Hopefully I can just kind of talk about trades as they come up, and just talk about that. Looks like we may be buying at the deadline, so that's not going to be necessarily what I wanted to show, but considering that we are in first place in the AL West, albeit by a game, or a half game actually, we'll probably still be in the playoff hunt come the deadline, and I am not going to deny a shot at a ring. So I will get to show a little bit of the trade deadline fun parts. I do want to try and get through the Rule 5 pick and free agency before Out of the Park 20 comes out. I have already placed my pre-order on that. I will be switching to that as soon as I can. But I do hope to get at least through this year, get through free agency, get through the Rule 5, and show you guys how to do that. So hopefully we'll get this going. I may continue this into Out of the Park 20, depending on how it looks. How Out of the Park 20 not looks but plays compared to Out of the Park 19. If it's vastly different, I'm just going to start a new franchise, but it doesn't look like it's going to be vastly different from what we've seen right now. Anyway, that's it for this episode. If you do like what you saw here and you want to see more of it, please do like, comment, and subscribe. Do look forward to bringing you guys more content from both Out of the Park 19 and Out of the Park 20 when it comes out. See you guys next time.